And we welcome you to another day, and you're looking live at New York City, where they know who Joe Burrow is in Times Square. He'll be not far from there Saturday night, accepting the Heisman Trophy, perhaps by the largest margin in history. Well, Reggie was actually the we were talking about Troy Smith earlier. I forgot Reggie's doesn't count. He won by 91.8%. Troy is the official leader at 91.6. Marcus Mariota a couple of years ago wasn't bad either. And we say hello to you. Glad you're with us here on a Tuesday. We are live in New York too, but not exactly in Times Square, a little bit farther south of that. But Joe Burrow's going to be the talk of this town. He's the talk of college football. And let's get off. We are off and running right now as we continue with the Tuesday program. Georgia has a new offensive lineman coach. Sam Pittman's gone, and Matt Luke is in. Pretty good replacement. One of the better line coaches around. Matt Luke was the Ole Miss head coach. Now he works for Kirby Smart. And breaking news, Chad Morris, formerly of Arkansas, is now at Auburn. This had been expected. He's not the head coach, of course. He is the offensive coordinator. He's a longtime friend of Gus Malzahn, and it will be interesting to see what Chad is able to do down on the plains. Well, we say hello to you. A lot to do today here in rather cold and rainy New York City. We're glad to have all of you with us. So who's the greatest coach of all time? Have we had this conversation? ESPN has released its list. Frank Leahy at 10, Woody Hayes, Bowden, Paterno, Bud Wilkinson at 6, Eddie Robinson 5, Tom Osborne at 4, Knute Rockne number 3, really? Nick Saban, and the GOAT of all time, that's Paul William Bryant Jr. Saban loses a game, and he's already loses his role as the greatest coach of all time. We got an all-time guest list today. Eli Drinkwitz, the new Missouri head coach. He's also a National Coach of the Year finalist. Matt Rule from Baylor. Always great to talk to him. Ken Rogers, Vice President of NFL Films. He was part of the amazing Saban and Belichick. Josh Booty, former LSU quarterback. And your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Hope you'll jump on board and we'll get your thoughts. Jim starts us off in South Carolina. Hello, Jim. Welcome to our program and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How is everybody?
We're doing great. Thank you.
First-time caller. Been listening to you and watching you for about 5 years. Cannot believe I got through.
I'm really glad you did.
I watched yesterday, and I heard you make a statement saying that if Coach Kiffin comes to Ole Miss and beats Saban, that he is going to be king forever. My question to you is, if he's going to be king forever, Dabo's beat him twice. Does that make him chopped liver?
Yeah. Well, listen, we're mainly talking about within the SEC. Dabo has beaten Saban twice. Saban has beaten him twice. That is correct.
Okay. Well, just thank you for taking my call, sir.
Rich is also in South Carolina. Hello, Rich.
Hey, Paul. I was looking at Jim's name on the TV screen. Got a little confused there. Is it not true that the number one seed in the playoff has never won?
Through 5 playoffs, the number one seed has lost every single time. That is correct.
I thought that was correct. I'm just curious about something else. I've seen it said at least 3 times this weekend, is that Ohio State and LSU were jockeying for position in number 1, so they didn't have to play Clemson in the first round. Do the analysts think they're that dangerous?
Do the analysts think Clemson is that dangerous? Yes, they do.
Yeah. Okay, I was just curious. I mean, I know any given day somebody can beat another team, but I just didn't know if they thought.
Well, Rich, it's not so it's not so much just about Clemson. It's about playing Oklahoma over Clemson. Oklahoma is a significantly inferior team compared to Clemson.
I got you. Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Well, glad to hear from you. I really do appreciate it. Let's go to Tim, who is next up. Tim, welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Paul. How do you feel about, like, all the time that Clemson's defensive coordinator is going to get to prepare for Ohio State? And, like, I think that he's going to hold them down to, like, if he holds them under, like, 24 points, I think they're going to just run away with it, Clemson is, man.
Listen, Tim, I mean, everyone is certainly knee-deep in opinions right now, and we're, 2.5, 3 weeks away from the game. I don't know. I've thought about the games like you have, but I'm willing to wait a couple more weeks before we get too deep into the absolutes. Great to have you on. Will is in Mississippi. Will, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call. You know, we've been talking a lot about coaches, and we've been talking a lot about seedings here. And I just think it's interesting about how each respective coach responded to their victory Saturday night. We know before the game, Dabo kind of said that, you know, he's like the Rodney Dangerfield of college football. Nobody respects him. And I know why he's doing that. He's trying to get an edge. He's trying to put a chip on the shoulder of his team. But then I think it's interesting that Orgeron, after LSU beat Georgia, said, we'll go any place and play anybody at any time. You just tell us where to go and we'll be ready. And then his quarterback kind of reflected those or mirrored those comments by saying, you send us to Canada and we'll play on a gravel lot. But the most interesting is when Darren Day started giving a litany of reasons why he should be number one. Now, everybody's scared about playing Clemson in the first round. Did Orgeron kind of project that feeling to you? Or could Darren Day be sending a message not only to the committee, but maybe to his team that, man, maybe we don't want to play Clemson?
Well, listen, I don't want to say you're overthinking it, but I think Ryan Day was just in a posturing mode. He was number one all season long. He knows he blew the first half, and he was just trying to make a case. But the bottom line, nobody cares what these coaches have to say. The committee's not listening to them. Therefore, I think Orgeron has taken. I don't think the team is overly concerned either. I really don't.
Okay.
No, I say that because the game isn't tomorrow. Now, I mean, whatever was said Sunday is in the wind by the time we get to the game on December 28th. Hey, thank you for the call. I do appreciate it. Michael is in Tennessee. Michael, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how are you? I'm Alabama, class of 82, and I've been trying to get through since after the Iron Bowl. Let me tell you how all us real Alabama fans feel. We've won 5 of the last 10 national championships. We played for 3 more. We've had 2 Heisman Trophy winners. 98% of every team in the country would die to get to the college playoff one time, much less win one in a generation, and would dream of a Heisman Trophy winner. The dynasty ain't over. This year is, like you said and everyone else said, injuries caught up with us, youth on defense. Saban isn't going anywhere, and we'll be back next year. Roll Tide.
Fred is up next in Texas. Hey, Fred.
My man, Paul, thank you for taking my call today, brother. And God bless you, but man, hope you're feeling better. You sound so much better.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you so much.
I wanted to give a ring. First of all, congrats to all the Tigers. I mean, from Coach Orgeron on down, everybody on the staff, and the hardware coming in. They got to get a few U-Haul trucks to bring it all back to Baton Rouge. But I could not let the day go by without talking about something that you and your team have probably already seen it. The boys in the booth, I'm surprised they're not talking about it yet, and that is the latest hype video from LSU. Have you seen it with Tyrann Mathieu and Lil Boosie in the background?
I have not seen it.
Well, I tell you what, I got to give a shout-out to Will T. Stout. That's at Will T. Stout, S-T-O-U-T. He's the guy behind these videos. And, Paul, this thing is trending on Twitter. and Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, is just phenomenal. But nobody puts together hype videos like LSU. And I think that it's really symptomatic and emblematic of the way that LSU has approached everything this year from top to bottom, leaving nothing to chance, excellence, and really the attention to detail that Coach Orgeron learned from his first stop at Ole Miss, that he had to get better at it. But I just want to say to you, Paul, that you have changed your opinion on LSU, and I want to know, what is the number one reason why? Is it just the offense? Because you've always thought they had a great program.
No, I think most of it's really Coach Orgeron. I just, in watching him this year, have now convinced myself what friends in coaching have told me for many, many years, that he is a superb coach. I mean, sometimes you just have to see it to believe it. Fred, you understand that. And now that I've seen it, I have no doubt. This is not the same Ed Orgeron that we used to kick around and make fun of 2, 3, 4, 10 years ago. This guy knows what he's doing.
Well, obviously, I agree with you, and I'll give you the second part of my two-piece, and that is something you and I touched on about a month ago, and I'll ask you now. Has the tide, no pun intended, been turned, and is LSU now the destination program in the SEC?
Fred, a week from today, I may be able to give you a better answer. I think Alabama is still going to close very well in recruiting. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that the door is closed at Alabama, but I think with a national championship, LSU is definitely going to become the IT program. Yes.
Well, look, I appreciate you, and I want to say to all the Alabama fans out there, you've had a heck of a run. Miss Phyllis, I want to say hello. And all the Georgia Bulldogs fans, let me tell you, I hope that you carried your colors of black and red back to Georgia with pride, because they had a hell of a season too. And Paul, Paul Finebaum, remain a hell of an American. Thank you, Paul. Love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Fred. Great to hear from you. We are heading to a break now. We're off and running on this Tuesday afternoon.
There's no quarterback in college football playing better than the kid at Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. That is.
I don't agree with that, but go on. I'll let you keep talking.
I love it.
Whoa, whoa.
Burrow's okay.
Can't run from it.
He's running.
There's no running back
away.
playing better in college football.
He's done.
And there's one defense. There's one defense in the country.
Oh, gee, did he really just say that? Come on.
Sit down.
Let me bring Marcus back.
I'd like to stay.
Yeah, so Paul Finebaum joining us now, and your reaction there to what Dan said, kind of similar to what Marcus did yesterday. Here's the thing. I think we know that Burrow's a runaway, but Greeny, what do you want to ask Paul?
What was that reaction?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm always amazed when Dan makes these mild statements. I remember last year, Tua was LeBron James. Now it's, who is Trevor Lawrence? Is he the Kobe of this generation?
I haven't pegged him
I mean,
yet.
if you're asking me to say something nice about Trevor Lawrence, I'm contractually obligated not to say anything good about Clemson. But listen, it's a fair conversation. I just didn't see Trevor Lawrence play anyone this year where I could make a value judgment. The last time I saw him in a competitive game was against the University of North Carolina, and prior to that it was Alabama. So Dan, you're welcome to your opinions. You're obviously here a lot more than I am.
Doesn't it get a little bit stale that we only go, well, he hasn't played the guys that other people have? Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that Clemson has not
he's been playing junior college teams all season.
I think that's a little extreme.
Okay.
But everyone knows that he hasn't played the schedule
but that's okay.
as Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow is I was the one 5 weeks ago, he said, runaway Heisman, give it to him, and he'll be the #1 pick. Before you were saying it, Paul. And so I think to take the shot at Trevor Lawrence and go like, I just haven't seen him play anybody. He dismantled Notre Dame and Alabama last year in the playoff. I mean, beat him by 27, beat him by 28.
Last year.
He's never lost.
He hasn't broken a sweat.
He's having a better season.
He hasn't broken a sweat in 4 months.
He's having a better year this year than he had last year.
Desmond, one game to win. Who are you taking?
Let me be the voice of reason.
Oh, please.
Let me be the voice of reason. Coming into
away.
this season, the Heisman Trophy was Trevor Lawrence's to lose.
Correct.
Everyone loved Trevor Lawrence after he dismantled Alabama's defense. That should tell you how his season has gone so far this year. He's not even a finalist. So to say he's playing better than any quarterback, I think, is just a little far stretch. He is having a fantastic season. There's no doubt about that. The competition is the reason why that's why the committee put them at 3, okay?
Of course.
One game to go, though, Laura, to answer your question. I will have to go with Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow right now is more battle-tested this season.
I always liked you. And we welcome you back. Glad you're here on a Tuesday afternoon. A little bit cloudy. A little rain, snow is expected overnight, but that could be anywhere on the East Coast or in the Midwest. Glad you're here, and let's continue with more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Mike is in Bristol, Tennessee. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Paul. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much.
The four playoff games, which I certainly like, I believe that put an end to the 8-game or 16-game thing coming up in the future because, I mean, the 5, 6, 7, and 8, I think they basically played themselves out. So I think 4 is good.
Well, listen, I'm glad you. There's no right or wrong answer this year. I think 4 is enough. Some years it may not be. If you had 8, then we would be debating about 7, 8, and probably not very feverishly, but we would be talking about it.
Yeah. One other quick thing on the Heisman, I certainly would like to see them go through the end of the entire season before they gave that award away because I saw something today where Trevor Lawrence, and I know you're not a huge fan, but he was ahead of Burrow in 5 different categories up through this past weekend. And, if they end up playing each other, that would be a great way to kind of even it out or see who's really the better of the 2 players. You agree?
Well, here's the problem, and I do agree, but the Heisman has a specific slot on the calendar. It's a TV event, and if you held the Heisman a week after the national championship game, it would very likely lose most of its meaning.
Well, you still got the Army-Navy game that day, so there's still a few things going on.
Well, no, I'm not saying. I'm saying that if it wasn't this weekend and it was on January 17th, would it really have any impact?
Oh, yeah. To me, it certainly would. And I don't agree with the 900 or 1,000 voters. That really diminishes the entire award. I think there should be, basically college coaches and sports writers like yourself voting and keep it less than 100.
Well, listen, Mike, the Heisman, here's how the Heisman is constructed. Every state has X number of votes based on the number of, I think, teams in the state or Power 5 or used to be Division I. Every former Heisman winner gets a vote, so you're talking about 50 or 60. And I don't have a problem with a large number of people voting. I've never seen yet that it mattered too much. Thanks for the call. Do appreciate it. Claire is in Mississippi. Hey, Claire.
Hey, Paul.
Hi there.
I can't believe I finally got through. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
Love you so. Wanted to get your thoughts about the new hire over at Georgia. We lost our offensive line coach. Pittman left, and I can't say that I'm too sorry to see him go. But what do you think about bringing in Matt Luke?
Well, Matt Luke's going to Georgia, so yeah, they've already announced that, so that's a done deal.
Yeah, I know. Do you think that's a good hire?
Of course. Listen, I think Matt Luke's a really good coach. He's a player's coach, and I think it's a good place to land. He already starts with a good foundation, and listen, I hope Matt one day gets back to becoming a head coach. He's one of my favorite coaches, but he just got caught up in a political whirlwind in Oxford, as you well know.
Yeah, he seems like a super great guy, and that was just a stupid player move that I think he bore the brunt of. Well, with a new line coach coming in, do you think it's time to make any other changes over there to make us put us over the top?
Claire, I'd like to see a reevaluation of the offensive philosophy. What about you?
There you go. Oh, yes. I was hoping you would say that. I say it every game. I'm sitting here watching the games, and I'm thinking, and I say to my husband, I'm like, you know what? If a middle-aged mother can sit here on the sofa and predict what calls are coming, then there's probably a problem with your offensive coordinator or your golf player, you know?
Yeah, there's no. Hey, listen, thanks for the call. I do appreciate it. Paul is next up in Iowa. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul. How we doing?
We're doing great. Thanks a lot.
Hey, I got two questions for you. Being an Arkansas fan, kind of funny to call before. Pittman, always loved him when he worked under Brett Bielema. I think it's a great hire. Do you think it's a great hire? And the second question I would have with that, since Pittman, he's been a great recruiter for wherever he's went, will that hurt him being a head coach? Will he be as a good recruiter as a head coach as he was as a offensive coordinator? Or do you think that'll help him knowing that he's the head dog or head hog?
Listen, I think Pittman is a mystery, and I don't know him very well. I don't know him at all. So it's virtually impossible to make a prediction. I try not to make just blanket. I think he's going to be great. I think there are a lot of doubters about him, and his press conference yesterday was fairly low key. Hopefully we can interview him here where I think we'll get a better idea of how he responds on a one-on-one basis. Hey, thanks for the call. Hate to run. We're up against a break. More to come. More of your phone calls after this.
The Lane train is back to the SEC. Lane Kiffin has signed on to become the head coach at Ole Miss after leading Florida Atlantic to its second Conference USA championship, and this is something that will get a lot of attention because of Lane Kiffin's long-standing history in the SEC in a variety of places. A brief stint as the head coach, of course, at Tennessee, and then a successful stint as the offensive coordinator in Alabama. And Nick Saban's assistants have historically had all kinds of trouble with him, but I think you think this is going to be different this time.
Yeah, remember one thing. A couple of years ago, Lane Kiffin got the FAU job, and he coached in the semifinal game, so he quits. And he still got fired by Nick Saban because he lost interest right before the final. I think it ended up costing Alabama a national championship. But Lane Kiffin is obsessed with Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban is obsessed with him. And Greeny, I firmly believe that of all these disciples, and we've talked about them ad nauseum between Kirby Smart and Jimbo and so many others, that Lane Kiffin is going to be the first Saban disciple to beat the GOAT. I'm not saying it will happen next year, but it's going to happen because he will spend every moment. He'll lose 11 games to prepare for that one. And I think Saban's not intimidated by people, but he's going to look over there and go, I don't want to play Lane Kiffin.
He's like a gnat for Nick Saban, isn't he? And in the best, most respectful way that you can be a gnat. I mean, here's the thing about Lane.
A gnat?
I think when you look, like a GNAT. Anyway, when you look at what he brought to the SEC, that was part of really the shift offensively in the entire league that then made all these other teams, Greeny, have to decide that they've got to do big changes with their programs. And I do think that Lane will be obsessed with Coach Saban. There's a way that Saban looks at Kiffin with respect, but he also can't stand him.
I had someone close to Nick Saban tell me once that he had to get rid of Kiffin before the national championship game because he was like your recalcitrant 16-year-old who just grabs the keys to the Ferrari and forgets to turn the garage door open and he goes right through it.
Kiffin's matured a lot, though, since then, though, I think. At FAU.
Is this a good move? I mean, people will ask this at Ole Miss because of the history involving Kiffin. You like the move?
They were 4-8 under Matt Luke. This is a brilliant move. I mean, you hate to hire a coach to win the press conference, but this is Lane's 5th head coaching job, 4 in college and 1 with Al Davis at the Oakland Raiders. I think it's a fantastic move.
It is his, and you can take this however you wish.
Glad you're back. Well, glad all of us are here. I'm glad all of you are here. I'm here every day. And let's continue with more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Greg is in Myrtle Beach. Greg, thank you. Good afternoon.
Paul, I'm telling you, I'm about to say something I never, ever, ever thought I would say. But after the last 2 weeks of first Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, and then listening to Dabo Swinney and the Clemson fans living here. Listen, I'm an SEC football fan. I ain't got a dog in this fight. But after the last 2 weeks of listening to them, I am the biggest Ohio State football fan you would ever want to meet until after that Clemson game. I'm telling you, I'll go buy Ohio State stuff I'm so sick and tired of Harbaugh and Sweeney. Poor old Dabo. It's absolutely ridiculous. And their fans, I'm telling you, I watched Ohio State the second half of that Wisconsin game, and I'm telling you, they can beat Clemson. You have a great day, Paul. Thanks for taking my call now.
Thank you very much. Great to have you on. Craig is in Ohio. Hello, Craig. You're on the air.
Hi, Paul. Hey, I had a little thought. How about we get a little SEC Big Ten rivalry going on? We'll play your games down in the heat, and then when they have those cupcake games they have in November, come up here and play Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan in the cold.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Well, can we work it out? Can you do any of it?
I don't think I have the power to do any of that, no.
Oh, you got a lot of power with me, Paul. I'm watching your show about every day anymore, and we love you up here. Keep it up.
Thank you, Craig. I do appreciate it. We go from Ohio to Alabama, and Greg is up now. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. It is actually snowing up here as we speak, which is kind of a rarity for North Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
But I heard Fred's call earlier, and that was wonderful. You know, LSU fans have been wanting to get back to the pinnacle for so long, and now they're at the doorstep, and it's refreshing to hear a fan base that is actually excited about being in the playoffs. And, you know, this is the time of the year where you're getting all these Clemson callers, and not one of them is happy to be where they are, Paul. Why is that?
Well, because their head coach will not let them enjoy it. He's always got to play the woe is me card. He's won 2 of the last 3 national championships, and he acts like he's the head coach at Georgia State.
Well, Clemson is as relevant right now as it has ever been in the history of football. And fans should be able to enjoy what is going on right now because it doesn't last forever. And as an Alabama fan, we know that all too well. Because before we had Nick Saban, we had 20-plus years of mediocrity and downright disaster in Alabama. So when I was driving home today, I heard these callers, and it just reminded me this is that time of year where not one of your Clemson callers are going to call in being thankful about anything, but being upset and kind of passive-aggressive about where they are in the playoffs or this guy's not being considered for the Heisman and that kind of thing. So the SEC fans need to buckle up because it's going to be a long few weeks before we get there, Paul.
Well, do appreciate it. Thank you, Greg, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheryl is on the phone next. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Okay. When you started your show today, I just have a question about the list of the 10 greatest head coaches. And
yes.
I believe you said that Nick Saban was not on that list.
No, I said Nick Saban was number 2 on that list.
Oh, okay. Okay. I misheard then. I just thought that. But anyway, I just wondered, he was just named the decade, USA Today decade of the coach, decade of the coach of the decade.
Yeah.
USA Today, coach of the decade recently. So I was real proud of that. So he is number 2 on the list behind Paul Bear Bryant. So
I'm glad to hear. By the way, one thing that I do admire about the service polls, unlike the college football playoff poll, is that they do have transparency. And the USA Today coaches poll released its standing. It released the coaches' votes today, and there are a lot of interesting ones. But I thought the most interesting was Nick Saban of Alabama. Have you seen or heard what he did? This is Nick Saban's ballot. He had LSU number 1, Ohio State number 2, Clemson 3, Oklahoma 4. Guess who he had 5th? Alabama, ahead of Georgia at 6, Florida at 7, and Auburn at 8. So Nick Saban voted Alabama over Auburn Alabama at the 5 position, Auburn at the 8 position. By the way, it doesn't mean anything, but that was his mindset. Thought you. Ken is up next. Ken in Louisiana. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Paul. Great to talk to you. It's the first time
Thank
caller. Glad I got through.
Great to have you.
I wanted to say that when they first hired Coach O, I didn't know a lot about him. Only what you kind of heard at the press that some people were doubting him. Maybe he wasn't the right guy for the job. After I learned more about him, who he was, his history, and where he was from, I really started to understand who he was. Of course, being a Louisiana boy, we're probably going to at least try to love him. But he has a personality that, working with his team, that he gives you the belief that if he could, he would get down there in the trenches with you and dig it out. And I believe those young men have really believe in him. I think he believes in them, and they're willing to go to war for him. Also, you have Georgia fans coming in, calling in after the game, and a lot of us Louisiana fans, by all of us, really know, exactly how they're feeling now. For the last 6 or 7 years, it's been tough. It's really been tough. We're back up at the top, and things are going great for us, and I hope that we can sustain it. One thing, do want to mention a little bit about Coach Saban. That Coach Saban, when he was at LSU, really put LSU back up at forefront of the national conversation. A lot of the LSU fans don't like him because after he left and went to Miami and then he come back to Alabama, that was something that that really got, I guess, put a bad chip on the shoulder for him. But he did, in my opinion, put LSU, back in the forefront as obviously as a national champion and back to, toward the top of the polls and being recognized as a national power again.
Well, thank you very, very much. Appreciate the call. Nice of you to join us. Let's continue. Leah is in Baton Rouge. Hello, Leah.
Hello, Mr. Paul. At this late in the season, when you're talking about people who are, banged up and injured, is there enough of a difference in locker rooms, training facilities, and people who are in the training camps and medical personnel to make a difference in terms of the Final Four, or are we talking pretty equivalent personnel?
In terms of the 4 teams remaining?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think there would be some difference. I don't think there's any question that there might be a talent drop-off when you go from 3 to 4. I think the top 3 teams are pretty similar.
It's just that, we're looking at such pretty equivalent teams that I think that at this late in the game, it might make a bit of a difference.
Listen, there are differences, Leah, I can assure you. There's a lot of talent on all 4, but I think 3 of those teams have a lot more talent than the other one. Hey, thanks for the call. We have to break. More to come. More of your phone calls at 855-242.
Well, there's dread because it's Alabama, and what happened to Ohio State is obviously in their kind of collective consciousness, and so they see Alabama in the same light, but at the same time they see it as an opportunity to, get a win and finish off the season again with 10 victories. So, I think I think they look at it from a very mixed perspective, but it's also because of, the stakes of the bowl game have been reduced, obviously in light of the playoff. And in general, I think that, the Michigan and Alabama thing still resonates, but it just doesn't resonate to the same level as it would have if it was the previous bowl system. I mean, Michigan has everything to gain, really nothing to lose, whereas Alabama, they really don't have anything to gain, and I don't think they have much to lose either. But, perception-wise, I guess Jim Harbaugh could try to sell it as something of a major victory for his program and use it on the recruiting trail. But, I mean, I don't know what kind of recruit is really going to make their evaluation off of the Citrus Bowl. And I don't know if you'd want to sign a player like that anyway. I mean, I think it's, the defense obviously took a major step back. I do think that was a byproduct of the injuries and such. I mean, the inside linebackers are very, very important to that defense just for what they do and how they coordinate everything from the pass coverage standpoint and doing the run fits and all that kind of stuff on the defensive side. And so I think that was a major blow to the team was losing Josh McMillan and Dylan Moses, in training camp essentially. And so it's that really kind of set them off, on the wrong foot. And then obviously everything kind of hinges on Tua. And, Saban had been kind of trending towards this direction where the offense took more or became more powerful than the defense. If Alabama had the generational defense that it had in 2016 mixed with the offense and even with Mac Jones at quarterback, I mean, I think that team's in the playoff. But, considering what they lost on defense early in the season, combined with the injury to Tua, I just think it was too much to overcome. But I don't think you can make any kind of definitive statements about where the program is. I think they might take a step back a little bit next year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're back in, the CFP in 2021.
Welcome back. We're live here up in the East Coast. Let's grab some more calls. So Nick Saban has voted in the football coaches poll. This is what it is if you haven't seen it. He went LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, and then he went Alabama ahead of Georgia, Florida, Auburn. The College Football Playoff Committee did not agree with him. Always pushing his team. Billy is up next.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy, you're on the air.
Yes, okay. Coach, Paul, I'm asking, you three think the Alabama dynasty is over?
No, what I've said is I think the window is closing. I think we may be parsing over words, but I think the dominance of Alabama is over. Whether they'll win a championship or not, I think it's still possible.
Yes. I think Alabama is going through a little. Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm going to ask you about.
Yeah, I think we heard you, Billy. Thanks for the call. Harry is up next. Harry, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but last year when Army played Navy, I think the gentleman's name was Wojciechowski from ESPN. Did a pretty good show with you on the Army-Navy game. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Is that who that was?
Yeah, Gene Wojciechowski.
Yeah, will we be getting a taste of him this year, or do you know if he's on the schedule or not?
I haven't really checked, but he usually covers the game, Harry.
He did a great job last year. I really enjoyed it. Learned a lot about that series. Okay, Paul, I'm enjoying the show, and I just wanted to mention again, I know everybody said this, but I really enjoyed the last Friday show with Mr. Foxworthy. That was awesome, and the only other thing I'm going to say is, in the words of the late Hap Lawley, roll green wave. Thank you, Paul.
Harry, thank you. Yeah, I thought, appreciate all the comments. Danny and Mark Kubiak did a fantastic job putting last Friday's show together. Let's continue with more calls. Scotty is up next. Hey, Scotty.
Hey, Paul, first-time caller. I hope you hear me.
I can.
Good deal. My son-in-law works at the Ole Miss golf course over in Oxford, and you signed a book for my daughter a couple years ago, and she got some pictures with you, and that's one of my Christmas gifts. And I want to thank
Oh
you
wow,
for that.
I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, you were over in Oxford at one of the bookstores, and she got a book and got it signed for me and got pictures. I really thank you for it. My question was, now that we got Lane Kiffin after we beat Mississippi State, do you think Moorhead loses his job next year?
Well, I think if he has a season similar to this one, he might. I mean, he kept his job by beating Ole Miss. It's really that simple.
I agree, 100%. But, hey, I'm really excited about Lane Kiffin. I was a big Freeze fan, but I'm even more excited about Kiffin. I just wanted your thoughts on it.
Well, I'm glad to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Let's get some more calls here. And Bobby is in Louisiana. Hey, Bobby.
Hey, how you doing, Paul? Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
What I'd like to speak about is all these teams in the SEC that's in these bowl games, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Alabama, Texas A&M. I just would like to say to all those players that no matter what bowl they're in, the SEC fans are going to do everything they can to watch those games. So they're not just going to be representing their state or their team. That the fans are really interested in games, and I hope they take, and I think they will. I hope they want to win because we want them to win, and we take our time to kind of arrange things to watch these games. And I hope they understand that it is important to the fans, whether they're from Louisiana, whether they're from Tennessee, whether they're from Auburn or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're going to be watching and hope they do good.
Yeah, you know, the projections right now favor the SEC in almost every bowl game. Now, the one thing we don't know is who will play in these games, and that will be determined over the next 2 weeks. That's also going to determine the outcome of these games. Hey, great to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Let's continue with more calls. And Johnny is in Kentucky. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are great. Thank you.
Hey, news came out either yesterday or the day before that Lynn Bowden Jr. is declaring for the NFL. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't blame him. He's obviously gotten advice that he will get a job, and if you're going to make money on the next level, go. Why stick around?
Fair enough. Also, with him departing, do you think Kentucky's going to have a bigger impact on his leaving or Joey Gatewood's arrival?
I think Joey Gatewood will fit in perfectly. He was a really good quarterback. Some have debated whether he got a fair shake or not in Malzahn's offense, but I think he's landed in a very good place.
So do you think he beats out Terry Wilson for QB1 then?
I don't know. I think it depends on Terry's recovery, and I think Terry's really good. I think Gatewood's a more versatile athlete, but Wilson has a lot of experience. Hey, we're up against a break. 1 hour to down, 3 to go. Stick around. The new Missouri head coach will